ask about the running thing.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I guess why?
Which part?
Well, I mean, I guess it does kind of fall into the rest of your personality traits of enjoying the suffering part. But why specifically the triathlon or something? Because it's like, it seems like, and not just you, but lots of musicians, we get really good at something and then we try to get really good at something else.
Yeah. Well, I'll start by saying that while I do complete the triathlons that I sign up for. I've never placed or, you know, I'm really pretty slow. For me, the reason that I chose triathlon is because, as I said, I've had just been sedentary for 4 years.
Yeah.
And I'm generally a pretty energetic person. I like to move.
Yeah.
I like to be busy. And so I thought, well, triathlon sounds really cool because, first of all, it sounds really difficult.
Yeah.
If you want me to be interested in something, tell me how hard it is.
Sure.
Why I play the ovo or why I stuck with the ovo.
And being a musician in general.
That's right. So I thought, well, that sounds really crazy and difficult. And when I signed up for my first race, I had not done 1 minute of training.
Yeah.
I signed up and then found the training schedule.
Yeah.
So for me, I think part of it was the thrill of trying something I'd never tried before.
Yeah.
And I liked the variety that was built in to doing that.
Yeah.
I thought I can't just run every day or just ride my bike every day. Like, variety is really important to me in life. Yeah. And so I thought, well, it's got like built-in variety, built-in cross training. It sounds really difficult. I had knee pain from the time I was about 11 until I started running.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was pretty severe. And so I thought, can I even run? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, is my body just even built for it? And so, it was just like this challenge that seemed totally impossible to achieve. So those are some of the reasons why I chose it.
Yeah. No, I think there's a big, I don't know, I guess in your words, like peace in being bad at something.
Yeah.
And then working towards being good at it.
Yeah.
And yeah, the process in between can be really frustrating. And, but the progress that happens over time is rewarding whenever you notice a change. Yeah. And I think for me, I've wanted to do something like that, but haven't. I mean, for right now, it's just haven't had the time, but
Yeah.
Cause I have like 3 jobs right now. So
Yeah.
But I think it also does help with, what you were saying about being, introverted. I'm an ambivert.
Okay.
And so I like periods of solitude, and I think that like running helps with that a lot. But then people have used the analogy with your version of being like what recharges your battery. And so like for introverts, being alone recharges your battery. I think for me, I just have 2 batteries.
Sure.
And like I have my introvert battery, my extrovert battery. Whenever my introvert battery is filled by being alone, then I'm like, all right, I need people and to like do something exciting, and then recharge my extrovert battery.
Right.
And so I think that's probably why I like performing too. But I haven't fully jumped in to the athletic thing, probably because I'm good at excuses. But yeah, no time.
It does take a lot of time, especially at first when you don't have routines built around these things yet. Everything feels kind of awkward because it's like, okay, I've got to go to a gig or to work or whatever, but then I also have to like pack my gym bag to get to the pool after or between gigs or whatever. You're just like, how am I going to work all this out? And do I have all the gear that I need? And did I remember my goggles? And, it's just like everything takes all this thought and effort at first. But it's like anything else, once you get a routine, it's just autopilot, like the other things that you do every day.
Yeah. So,
but I do remember feeling really kind of stressed out and frustrated at times about getting all of that worked into my schedule. But I told myself, like, this is only frustrating right now because I'm getting used to it.
Yeah.
And so just by acknowledging that, was like, okay, so I'll just keep feeling awkward about it all until it suddenly feels like a habit.
Yeah.
And that's where I am now, I will say though, you made me remember that another reason why I chose triathlon is because if you remember, I started that basically like a week or two after I finished my doctorate. For those 4 years that I was working on it, my days were scheduled down to the minute.
Yeah.
Like, how many times am I going to chew each bite of my sandwich at lunch? Because it was like, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I had just 24-hour structure. Yeah. And when I graduated, I thought, okay, now what am I going to do? Yeah. I wanted to move and feel healthy again, but I also knew that I was going to need some structure in my life or I was going to lose my mind. Yeah. So those transitions for me out of highly structured routines into more open time, like summer break or even spring break, just a few days. If I'm not careful and I don't plan, I can trigger a panic attack because I just everything is too open-ended. I don't know what to do with myself. Yeah. I'm getting better about that now. But there's still not a day that I don't have specific plans, even if it's just for an hour or two. I've got that thing that I'm going to do that day. And that kind of anchors me, you know? And so that was really one of the big reasons that I chose the triathlon. Cause I was like, okay, I've got a workout or two that I have to do every day to be ready for the race. So that helped to fill some of those gaps in just my daily routine, as awkward as it was at first. It gave me something to do and to think about and, so.
What are the logistics of things that once you're actually doing the race, you don't actually, like, you wouldn't have known was a thing? People talk about like chafing happens. Sure. It's like you're running long distances and like,
that's true.
What's the other stuff with like riding a bike and swimming for long distances that you don't fully acknowledge until you are actually doing it?
So, for the swimming portion, you have to think about what time of the year are you going to be swimming. Yeah. And most triathlons are outdoors in some kind of open water, lake, or, the ocean, which sounds really scary. I've only done lake swimming. Sure. Which is, again, totally different from swimming in a pool, but, so you have to plan for what's the water temperature going to be, right? Even if it's, let's say it's hot outside. Well, maybe it's just been hot that day, but like the week leading up to it, it was really cold. Yeah. Are you going to need a wetsuit? Yeah. The first triathlon I ever did, I had trained through the summer. So I trained from May until September. Yeah. And again, this was the first time I'd ever done any of this stuff. I'd only trained in hot weather. I signed up for a triathlon in Colorado. Oh, okay. Okay. I'd maybe been to Colorado once or twice before. Yeah. And the weather leading up to the race was beautiful and like 70s and 80s and just perfect. The day of the race, raining and about 43 degrees and windy. I'd never done any cold weather training ever. So I was watching the weather forecast and I was like, I'm going to need a wetsuit.
Yeah.
This is the air temperature is going to be so cold that I'm going to need some insulation.
Yeah.
So I just like scramble around and find a wetsuit.
Yeah.
And then like figure out, okay, how am I going to layer on the bike? Because however cold it is, you get on a bike, add whatever wind chill that adds, right?
Yeah.
So cold. So that was something that I hadn't really thought about. I guess I just didn't realize how unpredictable the weather could be in that part of Colorado, that time of year. I don't know. Ignorance on my part. But of course I've survived it and finished the race and all that.
Yeah.
So that was something that surprised me. I had to learn about nutrition or like fueling during the workouts. It had never crossed my mind that I would, this was not so much for the first triathlon that I did, but the longer ones that I've done after. You have to plan what you're going to eat while you're running or riding your bike, which, you know, you always think like people who are exercising are generally trying not to consume more calories. Yeah. But if you're riding your bike for 3 hours, like you've got to eat something. Yeah. So what can I have in my pocket and eat while I'm pedaling? Yeah. That kind of thing. So that was like a whole new concept for me. What else? Little things like that, you know, making sure you hydrate and, how to avoid bonking or like totally running out of, you know, fuel basically, which can be really dangerous, especially if you're like out several miles away from home and nobody's quite sure where you are and you think you're about to pass out. So that's exciting. So yeah.
Yeah. Has this thing kept your difficulty brain at bay for a while?
Yeah, I would say so. You mean the looking for a challenge? Yeah, it has, because, I have stuck with longer distance races than I started with. So, the triathlon distance that I've done more often is the Olympic distance. So, it's like a 1,500 meter swim, and then, 25-mile bike ride and then a 6.2 mile run. Okay. So it's not like unfathomably long.
No, it's not.
But it's long enough that you have to really train for it. Yeah. And since I'm still relatively new to this, that's like a relatively challenging thing to stay trained for. Last fall, I did the Redman half triathlon. So I was trained up for like the whatever it is, the 1.2 mile swim, 56 mile bike ride, and the 13.1 mile run. Yeah. That was the biggest challenge that I'd had up to that point. And so that kept me mentally busy. And then, of course, I did a half marathon, and then I was like, oh, no, I need to do a full marathon. So for me, it's just been like upping the distances. As slow as I am, just like being able to train up to those. So that's kept me occupied. And then this last fall, after the half triathlon, I decided to move my body in different ways. And that's when I started climbing for the first time. So I thought it would be great cross training, basically to work some muscle groups that I had been neglecting in all the triathlon stuff. So.
Yeah. Are you eyeing more stuff, or are you like, I'm drowning in things? Am
I? Sort of, not seriously. But I'm getting kind of interested in hiking and like backpacking and that kind of thing. I've never done anything serious like that other than like little day hikes here and there. But I just love to be outside so much. Like whatever I can do to be outside for longer periods of time. So that's something I'm interested in terms of like physical activity, sport type things. I'm considering, becoming a vegetable farmer of all things, again, because I like being outside. Sure. And I like vegetables. So I've been thinking about that a little bit. And just today I was thinking about maybe I should sign up for yoga teacher training, because I've been doing yoga fairly regularly for the last 12 years or so. And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking for ways to diversify my skills, because I'm a musician after all.
Yeah.
And I'm always worried about survival.
Yeah.
So how many ways can I think of to make money and or to have kind of backup plans if I need to supplement my income? So I was thinking about that a little bit today. That's hot off the press new plan.
Right.
May or may not ever happen. But I'm okay with that kind of dreaming, because it gives me something to think about and get excited about.
Yeah.
And just following those curiosities can maybe just like fizzle and turn into nothing.
Yeah.
But it could be like the next big thing
Yeah.
in my life, you know? And there's not a right or wrong. It's not like, oh, well, that idea was stupid because it never turned into something. No, it gave me something fun to think about for a little while. September of what year? 2018. This is sort of related, but maybe think of it. My long-term relationship that I had of 14 years fell apart, and like my whole life trajectory changed. And so I moved from this house that I was buying with my partner, and he stayed in the house, and I just went to a rent house down the street, and I was like, okay, now what am I doing?
Yeah.
You know, and thinking along the lines of like having something to think about and plan for and dream about. For the first several months that I was living in this rent house, I was like, okay, what am I going to do for a place to live like permanently? Because I didn't want to rent. I'm done with that.
Yes.
Because I've had many bad landlord experiences, and I was just afraid that was going to happen again. So for several months, my dream was, okay, I'm going to live in a travel trailer. And I was like super pumped about it. I was doing all this research about travel trailers and watching YouTube videos and, looking at all different kinds of models of what I would want or not want and how much money was I going to be able to spend and where am I going to park it and where am I going to travel to and school is at a session.
Right.
And, I had like all these plans. And of course, everyone who loved me was very concerned.
Sure.
And one day somebody was like, maybe it's not the best idea to do that. Or I don't remember exactly what the conversation was. I was like, but you know what? It gives me something to like think about and look forward to, whether it ever turns into anything or not. Right. So I have taken on this new perspective about just ideas in general. Like it's okay to have some crazy idea and follow it for a little while and see what happens. And in doing that, I discovered this subculture of people who live that way. Yeah. Like the van life stuff and all of that. It's just fascinating. And I still dream about it some days. And maybe I'll do it. I don't know. So it's the same with my other curiosities like hiking and climbing and all of that. It's just like, it's something to make me feel curious and to give me that kind of beginner's mind that, gets me out of my head and, makes me feel okay to like not be an expert at something for a little while.
Yeah. So. That is a interesting thing. So one question that I usually ask, and I was trying not to interrupt your trains of thoughts on the last podcast. And so I think that there's goals that we're all striving towards. But I mean, I don't know if I'm like making the assumption, but like, did you have a like career goal for yourself as a musician? And like, I guess now that you like have a solid job teaching music, is there more to go?
I see what you're saying. Like, have I reached my final goal, final destination with that? I would say that when I was living in Arizona and occasionally feeling pretty homesick and kind of dreaming about the future, I would actually fantasize about teaching at UCO. And I thought that would be the dream job.
Sure.
But that's never going to happen.
Sure.
You know? So, I would say that teaching at UCO is my dream job.
Yeah.
And so that may be another reason why I've started trying to branch out in so many other areas, is because like, okay, like I've accomplished the big thing that I thought would never really happen. You know, I knew I was going to be a musician. I just wasn't sure how.
Yeah.
And it just turned out in some crazy way that I ended up exactly where I wanted to be. So, in terms of just like positions and titles, like I'm there now. Over my time at UCO, I'll be eligible at different points to apply for promotions. There are ranks, and you know, being a professor, a lot of people aren't aware of. So it's basically just like with time and experience and accomplishments, you can like go from assistant professor to associate, and then from associate to full. But full professor is it. Like that's as high as you get as a professor. Yeah. So, and you know, as those things come up, I'll apply for them. But right now at UCO, I'm just kind of focusing on a day-to-day basis on taking care of my students and serving them however I can. And so that's one of the reasons I started the running group. Is because I wanted to share my, you know, newfound knowledge about how to run, because it seems like a natural thing, but there are a lot of questions that surround it. And I know a lot of people are interested in that kind of thing, but are maybe too afraid to go to like a gym or, you know, go to like a running club where people have been doing it their whole lives, you know? So I thought, well, I'll just start one of my own. Why not? Share it with the students that I already love spending time with, and the other faculty. And, so that's a way that I am kind of striving for new heights in my position at UCO to keep myself engaged and to keep contributing to the community on campus. Right. So I don't know what would take me away from that position because it's where I really wanted to be anyway. Yeah. But at this point in my life, I know that anything can happen. Sure. And so... I can't say never, but I have no plans of going anywhere else. Right. So
no, it's interesting because I don't know. Everyone has this conception of it's a misguided conception, but it's like, oh, once I reach that dream, then I'll be like I'll be good. But like, there's no like. Once you reach it, there's still the rest of life after it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And, you know, some people have this idea of like always moving up a step, you know, like, so what might be common in my position would be like, okay, I've got the job at University of Central Oklahoma. Now let me see if I can get a position at a bigger university or one with a higher profile or fancier reputation, you know, but once you get there, then what? Yeah. You know, you're the same person, you know, just still there, stuck with your thoughts. Right. Like,
or with like a better resume, I guess, but
a better resume. Yeah. But for, you know,
for what?
Yeah. You know, so, I am perfectly content where I am. And it is, to me, it's the peak, you know. From here on out, what I do is just going to be based on my own creativity with what I can do inside of that environment. And that to me is really exciting because I'm happy where I am, you know. I'm not like grasping for something else or resisting where I am for one reason or another. It's where I want to be. So,
yeah. No, because I mean, like I said, I have like 3 jobs right now, and it's like, it's a struggle, and it's, and probably oversharing, but hey, this is my podcast.
Do it.
Whenever I got my master's, I just kind of like graduated and then just fell into nothingness. And like, yeah, I do want a doctorate, but like, I've also been going to school my whole life. Yeah. Until just then. So I needed to like not for a bit.
Like have a cleansing phase.
Yeah. But I also feel like the institution in general wasn't preparing me for the like practical needs. Like I learned music. I did that. But like everything else that is associated with it did not come with that.
Yeah.
And so, and then there's like the weird thing that like everyone has a master's degree now for some reason, and then everyone has a doctorate, and
Right.
like, and so the way
Means
that
less and less.
yeah. And so I don't know, I kind of felt like my master's degree doesn't really matter. And so it's nice to hear your perspective, because I'm way down here and I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I know a lot of people who have been in that state, and they were like, I don't know what to do with myself right now. I'm going to go get a doctorate. It's like, you're going to spend how much money
Yeah.
and become, well, I can't think of the term right now, but like, basically, it's kind of a narrower and narrower view the higher up you get in your education.
Yeah.
So it's more and more myopic, maybe is a good word. Like, think about the title of what my dissertation was about. Like, that's really specific, you know? And while those endeavors are worthwhile and beautiful and exciting, if you're looking for kind of like day-to-day practicality, that might not be where that fits, you know? So, you remember I took about 5 years off after my master's before I started my doctorate, just to work and figure out what the hell is going on, you know? And, when it looked like the path was leading me in that direction, I thought, okay, now I'll start the doctorate.
Right.
But I don't think that people need one.
Yeah.
I don't think that people need college degrees.
Any degree,
right. Yeah. Because there are so many things we can do and be perfectly successful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that for you, I'm giving advice when you didn't ask for it. Just work for a while, see what happens. And then I am very much a go with your gut kind of person.
Yeah.
So if you start to feel a pull back, you know, to get a doctorate, great. If not, great.
Yeah.
You'll end up where you need to be anyway,
Sure.
right? If you keep following the things that you're
Yeah.
interested and curious about, and the people that make it in this field, beyond the things I said earlier about like showing up on time and being nice and being prepared,
Right.
when you're trying to piece together a career like this, you have to hustle.
Yeah.
Like I said too earlier. I mean, you've just always got to be going, looking for opportunities, and being really inventive with the way that you put things together, and always looking for, sometimes you make your own work.
Yeah.
Right. And that could turn into a whole big thing, So yeah, it's, I remember feeling kind of like empty or depressed or just kind of like lost after the master's degree. Cause then what? But I took that time to work multiple jobs and just get some direction. Yeah. And you need time and space for that. And that's something that people don't realize sometimes, is that it takes time to think.
Yeah.
And you need space to do that. Right. So if you're in graduate school and you're always being told what to think about, you're not really going to have time to figure out where you're going or who you are or whatever. So you're probably just in that phase where you're just like, okay, now which way do I go?
Right. Yeah.
I kind of remember when I finished my master's feeling like school up to that point had just been like this rushing river. And I was just like swept up in this rushing river. And then graduation was like when the river empties into the ocean. And then you're just like floating. And you're like, now what's happening? So anyway, that's how I think about all that.
And that's like, it's really very true. Cause that's exactly what happened. And then,
and that's okay.
Right. Yeah. But like, stumbled around for like 5 months until I like found a job, or like the job found me. But it's like, you were a teacher of these things. So how can the institution itself prepare the students for this? Because it feels like we have all this coursework and it's like, these are the things that you have to have to be able to consider yourself a master or a bachelor or a doctor of this thing. Yeah. But then there's the rest of life that we're not learning about.
Right. Yeah. I think about that a lot, actually, in the way that I teach. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember because it's been so many years, but I am conscious of this as I'm teaching, and I say it to my classes. The most important thing you can learn in college is how to teach yourself something new. Yeah. All by yourself. Yeah. And I'm teaching freshmen. And they are, for the most part, just trying to figure out how not to act like a child anymore, you know? So I'm not sure how much they're hearing that. Sure. On a daily basis in the classroom, but I keep saying it. Yeah. Because hopefully it'll stick and it'll be rattling around in their head someday. And they'll go, oh, yeah.
And then someone else will say the same thing. And they'll be like, oh,
I've heard this before. Yeah. So I try to shape my pedagogical style around that idea. Yeah. So I often have the students discuss new concepts on their own in small groups in the classroom, or send them home to try an assignment on something we've never talked about. And I tell them, use this time to practice learning something new on your own. Yeah. And then we'll come back together and talk about it next time. And you can start to pick apart your own thought processes and your own, methods and try to be better at it next time, So that to me is a really important skill for anyone, whether they decide, because again, it's fresh. These are freshmen. Some of them are going to change their majors and move on and do something else. Right. So if they can get a little bit of that in studying with me, whether it's in music theory or oral skills or oboe, then I feel really good about that. Yeah. Like you've got skills that you can take with you and do anything you want to do. So that is something I think about a lot. I try to also encourage critical thinking as much as I can in class about why are things the way they are. I'm very much a why kind of person. I always want to know why. So I try to guide my students through those kinds of thought processes in the hope that it will become a habit for the way that they think. Yeah. So I try to teach them how to think on their own and how to learn new things on their own. Yeah. That's my solution to that, because I know that what we do is so technical on a day-to-day basis that sometimes it starts not to feel like relevant. Yeah. So, I understand what you're saying for sure. Right.
No, in fact, the other day I was going over one of the pieces that I wrote for the commissioning project. And I was explaining like why I chose the chords that I did. And Ryan, violist, he was like, oh, I appreciate you spelling it out that way, because he's learned the theory, but he hasn't learned why the theory. And so the what is the chord, but why the chord? Yeah.
And that's real music theory. Yeah. Though it's the why and the how. It's not the separate kind of pieces and building blocks that make it. Right. And that's what a lot of music students, especially if they never go on to graduate school, they never really get like real music theory. They know the basics. They know the fundamentals. They have it's like they have the toolbox of all the music theory stuff, but they don't know necessarily how to apply the tools in a way that is like relevant to culture and philosophy and all those things. Right. So
do I drive in this screw with a hammer?
Right.
No.
Right.
Yeah. But then it's also like the confusion as to like, is there just no time to do the why on top of the what.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Because what we're doing a lot of times as teachers, professors, at least where I'm teaching, is just like trying to convince the students to practice it enough just to be able to do the what.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just learn how to hold the tool. Right?
Yeah.
And there's so much resistance to that on a daily basis.
Yeah.
That by the time you get to the end of theory 4, like it's over, you know, and we've just been dragging people through it, you know, like, and you know, in some programs there are like upper level credits where people can dig into those things a little bit more deeply, but most people, with their kind of immature view of what music theory is, they're not really drawn to that. It's like, oh, it's more theory. I don't want to do that anymore.
Right.
So they're kind of selling themselves short in that they never get to open up the machine and really take it apart and learn how it works. Right. So, there's not a lot of time and often not a lot of enthusiasm for it. So anyway,
with all of the other stuff that we've been talking about, like, you know, running marathons and stuff and climbing, how does that apply to music and how you see it? If at all.
It does so much on so many levels. And I was really surprised as I was working through the first training program I ever did. I was like, this is just like getting ready for a recital.
Yeah.
That's all it's the same process, right? You pick a day and you say, I'm going to be ready for the thing on that day. Here I am today on the calendar, and this is what I have to do between now and then to be ready. And if you just trust the process and follow it, like, you're going to get there.
Yeah.
So it's the same mental game where it's like every day you have to get up and show up for, if it's a recital, practicing, if it's the race, the workout.
Yeah.
It's the same mental process. So I will say, though, that at least at my kind of entrance level as an athlete, which I hesitate to even call myself that, but playing music is mentally so much harder.
Sure.
Just in terms of some of the processes you have to go through. But to get to the end of a race sometimes can feel as grueling. It's just not always as like, it's mental, but in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, also, I will say that doing all these endurance sports has made playing the oboe feel so much easier.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I couldn't even imagine how much easier it would feel.
Yeah.
Just because my cardiovascular system is so much stronger. My abdominal muscles are so much stronger, which it takes a lot of abdominal muscle strength to be able to play the oboe. But it's like, wow, this feels so much easier. If I'd known that, I would have maybe done it a little bit sooner.
Sure.
So that's been really cool.
Yeah. I feel like even just the breath.
Right. Yeah. But in a way, like playing the oboe helped me, it prepared me for thinking about ways to regulate my breath while I run or swim, more than cycling. Because the breathing for running and for swimming is so, in its best state, it's very rhythmic and regular and comfortable. Yeah. And so because I was so used to controlling my air playing the oboe, I was like, I already kind of like have a feel for what I need to do here. So then after that, it was just strength and conditioning that made everything feel so much easier. So,
do you listen to music or podcasts or something whenever you're?
I do, most of the time. For races, it's not usually allowed for safety reasons because you have to be aware of your surroundings. But if I'm running, I'll often have in one earbud so I can still hear what's going on around me. Yeah. But kind of have myself mentally engaged on something else, especially if it's a really long run, just to help pass the time. So some of the things I like to listen to lately are funk. I really like listening to funk. Love funk so much. not necessarily related. But another kind of music I really like to listen to is bluegrass.
Yeah.
And kind of roots styles or genres of music I really enjoy listening to. I love the banjo so much. Love the mandolin and fiddle and, you know, all those styles of music that use that instrumentation. So blues, I love the blues, which is another roots music. So I honestly don't listen to a lot of classical music in leisure time.
That's a thought I have often, that it seems like classical musicians, a lot, I won't say all, because there are some people who do just enjoy doing that all the time. But like, I feel like a lot of classical musicians don't listen to classical music for pleasure.
Yeah.
Like there's almost like, this is my like brain on fire stuff. And then I need something else to not do that.
Because we can't help it at this point, but to be analytical in the way that we listen to that music that is our work. And it can be overwhelming. I do sometimes get pleasure out of listening to classical music in my leisure time. But surely when I'm studying it and practicing it and listening to it for work, I really do enjoy it. But it's work. Like you said, that brain on fire feeling where it's just like everything is on. I really like to listen to styles of music that I don't feel like I could play at all, like funk. And bluegrass. I absolutely love those styles because they're so interesting in so many ways, rhythmically and harmonically, and they just have like an atmosphere that I'm not sure that I could create myself. And so to me, that's fascinating because it's like, it's mysterious. So it's fun, you know? So,
but then I don't know, one day you could pick up a bass and try and do all that.
I could. I've dabbled a little bit in songwriting lately, and I would say that stuff is not, it's not really classical in style. So I have played around with it a little bit, but wouldn't say that I'm that great at it. But yeah, so those are the kinds of music that I like to listen to. If I don't feel like listening to music, and I'd rather listen to people speak, I usually lately have been listening to like storytelling podcasts like The Moth and things like that. Or Snap Judgment or whatever, those kinds of things. And that engages my mind in totally different ways. So,
I used to listen to The Moth, but then they were rerunning so many of them that I was just like, I've heard this one like 3 times now. I'm probably so far behind on it that it would take me forever to catch up anyway. So I haven't heard any repeats yet. But are you interested in learning other instruments?
I would say that I am, though at this point in my career, I know how daunting it is to become really good at an instrument, like what a monumental thing that is. So I took piano lessons for 10 years. So I play that. I'm pretty rusty on it right now. But that's a place where I like to get some pleasure just playing for fun. In my office, sometimes if my brain is just like totally fried, or if I'm feeling really tense, I'll just sit down and sight read a little piece on the piano. And that like resets me. It's amazing the way it works. I recently got a mountain dulcimer. Like a baby mountain dulcimer, like one doesn't even have a brand. I think some guy just like made it in his shack somewhere. I don't know. I found it used in like this used instrument store in like Asheville, North Carolina online, and got it and had some repairs done to it. And the guy at the shop was like, I'm not even really sure like what this is or where it came from. But that's been really fun because you just kind of strum, like your old 1-4-5 progression and, that gives you a lot of freedom to make up songs or sing lots of, familiar songs. That's really fun. Because I can just like sit and just have a good time and be relaxed. Playing the oboe is not a relaxing activity. Like just physically, it's way too demanding to do it for just kind of for fun. So yeah, the mountain dulcimer I've had a lot of fun with.
Yeah.
And then I strum on a guitar every once in a while,
Sure.
but that takes so much strength in the left hand. And it makes the tips of my fingers numb sometimes. And I think like, I can't really afford that with my reed making and my oboe playing. Like I need to be able to feel my extremities.
Interesting.
So, like over the winter,
hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. Over the winter break, I played with it quite a bit. But then I was like, maybe I should take a break.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I would love to be able to play the banjo. I love the accordion. There are so many instruments I just absolutely love. And if I had time, would spend on them. But
well, I think that, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, but like in a way, learning to get good at an instrument is also just kind of learning to get good at all.
yeah,
And so whenever you pick up a new instrument, you're not quite just starting from nothing.
That's
like
right.
The first time that you picked up an oboe,
That's right.
You have a doctorate's worth of knowledge to support that.
I have a head start.
Yeah. And so, a middle schooler's, 3-year time on an instrument is very different from, even just like a week's time.
Right.
With your other musical experience.
That's very true.
And then songwriting itself is a separate muscle. I feel
That's
like
true.
since having more of a performer brain, how does that apply to your writing of music? And also teacher brain.
Yeah. I would say that the songs that I've written most recently were, how do I put this? It was a form of expression for me to be able to understand some recent difficult life events. And having to, when writing lyrics for the song, having to put my feelings or ideas about some really huge things that have happened into just a few lines of text helped me understand it better and process it.
Yeah.
And so that's how I've been using songwriting lately.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because when I had an idea for a song, it just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it was like the melody came and then the chorus came and then the verses happened. And it was just like, I got to get this down, you know? You probably know what I'm talking about since you write music. It's like this, as I said earlier, like you feel this in your gut. It's like, I have to create this thing just because it needs to get out of me.
Yes. Yeah.
So I would say that my songwriting doesn't feel related to any of my other musical activities.
Yeah.
Because it has been such a personal thing.
Yeah.
And the songs that I've written have been for, what did I do? I played my mountain dulcimer that I'd only had for like a couple of weeks.
Sure.
You know? So I was like learning how to manage this thing and it was broken. When I wrote and recorded the song, the mountain, it wouldn't hold a tune and all the strings were like old and dead. But it was like, this is the tool that I need for this thing, you know? So I did that. And then I wrote a song. I played guitar on one of them. I don't even really know how to play the guitar, but it was like, this is the sound that I need. So I'm going to figure out how to do the thing that I need for this song. And then the third one that I wrote was on piano, which I know because I took lessons for so many years. Yeah. But the chord progressions and the structure and all of that was not really... I didn't create any of that from an analytical place in my mind. So it just felt like a totally different part of me that I wasn't even sure was really there. I mean, I've written songs here and there over my life, but this was like a totally different thing.
Yeah. No, that's...
So.
I'm really curious about that because being a songwriter or just composer in general, there are those instances like you described where a song would just sort of come out of me fully formed.
Yeah.
And all I had to do was make it real. But then there's the rest of the instances where I do have to use my musical knowledge to kind of, I know what this wants to be, but I have to work with it.
Make the pieces
with
fit.
the tools. So how did you even make something not informed by your musical knowledge? Because I feel like at some point for me with the stuff that I've written, like I can't not use the tools.
Yeah. Well, I guess I should go back a little bit and say that I have composed a fair amount of music, maybe more than most instrumentalists.
Sure.
Because I'm just interested in music theory and how it all fits together.
Yeah.
And so I've taken some composition classes. So all of that stuff was written is probably the process.
Yeah.
The stuff that I was writing as I was studying composition, kind of had it was like compose a piece in this style. Okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
So I've done that. Then later I composed quite a bit of music for a duo that I had with my former partner when we would go play for meditation groups and yoga classes and things like that. So it was all instrumental music, but it was functional. It was for a particular environment. And so I was using my analytical brain to do that, while sometimes the melodies would just come to me, right? Kind of the seed of the piece would just come out of nowhere. I was using my analytical mind to make the pieces fit together and to make it the right amount of time and right for the instrumentation that I had and all that. But these songs that I wrote just for my own personal, like, development or whatever expression, it wasn't for any of those reasons. It wasn't like, here are the rules.
Yeah, there wasn't a function needing to be done.
Right. It was just for me. And I've put them out on YouTube so people can listen to them if they want to, but I don't care if anybody likes them or not.
Sure.
I don't care if anybody ever even listens to them. But I decided to share them because I thought, well, if anybody maybe needs to hear it, it's there.
Yeah.
And sometimes you find something you're like, I really needed that, So, but yeah, it was like from a totally different mindset that I wrote it. So of course I used my musical training to do it, obviously, but I wasn't thinking about like, what do I want the chord progression to be?
Yeah.
Or how many verses do I want it to have? Or, how long should the chorus be or whatever? So, so it felt disconnected from all of my studies, but surely it's, coming out of all that. So,
I'm trying to think if there was one last thought I wanted to add. I guess just name some of those bluegrass and funk artists that you're listening to so other people can listen to them.
Wolfpack is one of my favorites right now.
Yeah.
Lettuce, I'm really getting into. Lettuce, like the vegetable, the leafy green. Herbie Hancock, things like that. My Pandora is often just kind of on like a random whatever. So I'm sure I'm listening to people I can't even name right now because of that. Bluegrass favorites, Sarah Jarosz, Punch Brothers, just Chris Thile in general.
Okay.
The greats of bluegrass, like Ricky Skaggs and Jillian Welch and,
I don't have a sphere for that as much.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So those kinds of people. And then of course, anything blues, whether it's like the really old school gritty, like field recordings, you know, from way back, and they're all scratchy and kind of hard to hear. I love that stuff. And then of course, more modern, but anything roots music I really enjoy. But those are the big ones I can think of right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you.
Where can we find you and your things?
So I'm at UCO most of the time, working with my students, play in Tulsa with the symphony and the ballet and the opera on occasion as a substitute or auxiliary player, play with the Oklahoma City Philharmonic on occasion. and got some stuff coming up with both of those areas. Tulsa Symphony doing Star Wars Episode 4, March 14th, and then doing Rite of Spring with the Oklahoma City Philharmonic in April. I think it's the first weekend of April. Other than that, just chamber music, performances here and there on campus, and we go play in schools and that kind of thing. You can find me on YouTube under Dr. KaDee Bramlett, and on Instagram under Dr. Hotboy, HAUTBOI. So.
Yeah. And as you were promoting some of those, I was like, oh yeah, what are my, this will be coming out later than Monday's concert, so never mind. But there's always other Electric Pizza stuff going on, probably in the fall though, so I don't know what otherwise. Anyways, thank you. I'm Santiago Ramones.
I'm KaDee Bramlett.
You can find everything that I do on my website, santiagoramones.com. I do songs and composer stuff, electronic stuff. I have Power Cycle. We have an album out called Too Many Damn Cables. We probably will have another EP out sometime in the summer, and then probably another full album sometime in the fall, because we make improvised music and we generate a lot of content. And you can find the Electric Pizza concerts, and we'll be promoting all of those whenever they happen. And I'll be playing a jazz gig at Saint Sessions at Saints in the Plaza District on May 7th with a completely different lineup and completely different genre that I normally do. And I always end my podcast with my 3 things. They shape my life philosophy. Those 3 things are: love never fails, it's going to be okay, I might be wrong.